So Fox News, as you guys know, is so concerned with owning the libs and owning Democrats that they're willing to fudge the facts relentlessly in the pursuit of that. So here we have a video. I'll show you. Media Matters clipped this out. I'll give you this and some facts along with it. Fox hosts defend massive profits for oil companies amid rising gas prices. Jesse Waters, quote, he's threatening to confiscate their profits like some third world dictator. So first of all, let me just say, he is absolutely not threatening to do this. He should. He should. That'd be super based, but he's not doing that. Anyway, so let's take a look, and then I'll give you guys some important context that, of course, they're going to leave out because that's their job.
President Biden hitting the next target in his endless inflation blame-a-palooza after pointing the finger at Putin, Republicans, and big meat. Biden is also going after big oil by sending a strongly worded letter to the heads of 7 oil companies. Oh, boy.
So wait a second. Is he going after oil companies, or is he just a weak little bitch and he's not going after them because he's sending a strongly worded letter, which is tantamount to doing nothing? So which is it? We already have a massive contradiction. You can't say, well, now he's unfairly going after the oil companies, but also in the same breath say, LOL, tee-hee-hee, he's just sending a strongly worded letter, which is akin to doing absolutely nothing. So we already have a contradiction, and we're 17 seconds in.
Threatening to use emergency powers if they don't boost supply after bashing them for turning a profit. Comes as gas prices nationwide have officially topped $5 per gallon with no relief in sight. And
okay. Boosting, or what did he say? Did he say the word bashing them for turning a profit? Let's run that back. I just want to get the wording
right. Profit. Comes as gas prices and oil companies, oh boy, threatening to use emergency powers if they don't boost supply after bashing them for turning a profit.
Bashing them for turning a profit. Now, why would he be doing that? Why would he be doing that? Let's see. Gas is over $5 a gallon right now. The last time a barrel of crude oil cost this much was in July 2014. At that point, a gallon of gas only cost about $3.54. Let's be clear, oil companies don't need to be charging this much for gas. They're just doing it to make excess profits. That's exactly right, which is why it makes perfect sense to bash them for turning a profit. The problem is that that's all Biden is doing. You should do a windfall profits tax. You should go after them aggressively and use the force of law to make sure they can't do the price gouging that they're doing. Now, more on that later. Keep that thought in your mind. Price gouging by oil companies. More on that later. Now, notice, Fox is totally dodging that. They're not acknowledging that the oil companies are doing price gouging. They're obfuscating and they're deflecting, and they're solely blaming Biden. Now, Biden deserves a lot of blame for a lot of things. This is not one of them. You have to criticize the oil companies in the context of this story, and they're refusing to do it. In fact, they're defending them.
Comes as gas prices nationwide have officially topped $5 per gallon with no relief in sight. And if you can't afford these sky-high gas prices, the White House says just buy an expensive electric car.
If you filled up your EV by charging and you filled up your gas tank with gasoline and you have the same size tank, you would save $60 per fill-up by going electric rather than using gasoline. So it's a very compelling case. But again, to your point, we want to bring down the price at the point of purchase.
Well, she knows money. She has stock in electric vehicles.
I will say it is kind of goofy to just be like, well, everybody just buy an electric car. Well, a lot of people can't afford an electric car right now. The real move would have been years ago, maybe a decade ago, to mandate that all cars are electric by, I don't know, 2025 or some shit. But they didn't do that. So now just like prodding people to do it on the free market it's pretty dumb. It is pretty dumb.
Believe Biden's marks are so low on inflation that even CNN is turning on him.
How does President Biden's performance rate?
Awful. I mean,
I knew that was the answer.
The answer is awful. I mean, you know, I'll compare it to Carter at this point in his presidency, right? Look at the disapproval rating Joe Biden has on inflation right now. Wow. It's over 70%. Carter was not even there at this point in mid-1978. When you're doing worse than Jimmy Carter's doing in the minds of Americans on inflation, you know that they're holding you responsible for the conditions that are currently on the ground that are hurting Americans in their pocketbooks.
All right, there's a couple of pieces of positive news here that we're overlooking. I'm going to go to you first, Jesse. Aren't you happy for Jimmy Carter that he is still alive to see that he is no longer the worst president in modern times?
Yes.
This is a big...
Without a doubt, George W. Bush was the worst president in modern times, followed closely by Donald Trump. Without a doubt. Jimmy Carter, after his presidency, has shown himself to be a phenomenally moral man with everything he's done afterwards. The Carter Foundation basically curing like waterborne illnesses in Africa, Habitat for Humanity, building houses. Like, Jimmy Carter's okay. Jimmy Carter's okay. George W. Bush is the war criminal bathed in blood. Now, virtually all the modern presidents are, but he's uniquely bad if you ask me.
Big deal for him and his legacy. He gets to be here and see, I'm not the bad guy.
Yes, the Carter Renaissance. I never thought I'd ever see it in my entire life. Greg, humor me. Take a trip down memory lane, shall we?
Yes.
Let's go back to 2020, when a barrel of oil was less expensive than a slice of pizza. Do you remember it went negative for a while? Yes. Gas, a couple months in that year, I think it was like less than $2 a gallon. And ExxonMobil had its worst year ever. They lost $22 billion with a B dollars. Things turned around, demand went up, price of oil went back up, and now they're making profit. So Joe gets freaked out because every time the gasoline prices go up, his approval rating goes down, and he starts screaming and threatening these oil executives.
Now wait, I thought he was sending a strongly worded letter, which is akin to doing absolutely nothing, and so he's a weak do-nothing president. But now you're telling me, no, he's actually a strong man, and he's going after these poor oil executives. I feel so bad for them. Which is it?
And tells them to increase supply. Okay, how about this? New York Times. Biden administration cancels drilling sales in Alaska and Gulf of Mexico. That was in May. How's that going to help supply? These oil executives...
Here's why that's massively misleading. ABC News. Infuriating climate activists, Biden expands oil drilling on public land. Whoa. What? In a move that could help temper high gasoline prices, President Joe Biden is bringing back leases for oil and gas drilling on federal land, but the reversal of a 2020 campaign promise has angered climate activists ahead of midterms that will deter Biden's ability to get his agenda through Congress. The administration was set to start selling leases for drilling on public lands, putting 144,000 acres of land up for lease in 9 states as soon as Monday. As Biden faces massive pressure to boost oil production in the U.S. amid soaring prices, partly from the war in Ukraine, what Biden calls Putin's price hike. That's bullshit. The Interior Department announced the move on Friday afternoon, heading into the holiday weekend. Now, it's only like 8% of the U.S. market is Russian oil and gas. This was on April 18th, 2022. More here. January 21st, 2022. New data. Biden's first-year drilling permits stomps Trump's by 34%. 34%. So, he's always been in favor of more drilling. Now, maybe in that one specific area, Alaska and Antarctica, he's like, I don't know about that. But that's correct. He shouldn't want to drill there. Because, again, we have to make the transition at some point off of fossil fuels because we see what's happening with climate change. It is an existential threat, and we have to get to green and renewable technology as soon as possible.
I've got to be thinking to myself, could you do something on permits? Can you get the SEC off our back? Can you make those crazy radical left-wing green lawyers stop suing us every time we try to start a project? Or how about helping us out building a refinery? We haven't built a major one since the 1970s, so he's panicking. And you saw this coming because he ran on getting rid of fossil fuels. That was a direct quote. We'll get rid of them. We'll phase them out. And then he gets in the Oval and he does everything to do that through lawsuits and regulations. But now...
The idea that he followed through on that is ridiculous. It's ridiculous. He's done the opposite.
I think he's basically like the Undertaker for the fossil fuel industry, right? They're going to put you out of business if you're ahead of one of these companies. And then he starts freaking out because he's going to lose the midterms and possibly the next election. And now he's like, drill, baby, drill. Joe Biden has turned into Sarah Palin. He's getting that desperate. And now he's threatening to confiscate their profits like some third world dictator. This is not how the president of the United States should be acting. This is not a coherent energy policy.
Yeah. Okay. Like I said, gas is over $5 a gallon right now. The last time a barrel of crude oil cost this much was in July 2014. At that point, a gallon of gas only cost $3.54. They are price gouging. Now, you want to know who's trying to tackle that problem and who's not trying to tackle that problem? Well, what do we have here? Oh, look at this, an oil and gas price gouging bill. Democrats voted to stop the oil and gas price gouging. 217 vote in favor. 4 voted no. Those are the 4 that are most bought by the oil and gas industry. Republican. 203 Republicans voted no. They didn't want to stop the oil and gas price gouging. So for them to complain and to bitch and to moan and to point the finger at Biden, no, look in the mirror. The people who you defend on a regular basis are the ones who are doing everything they can to keep gas prices as high as possible because, number one, they're bought by the oil and gas industry, and number two, they know it hurts Biden politically, so they want oil and gas to remain as high as humanly possible. So ultimately, this Media Matters headline is exactly correct. Fox hosts defend massive profits for oil companies amid rising gas prices. Because everything is just trying to LOL, tee-hee-hee, let's own Biden. Even if everybody has to pay more in gas. Look, my position on oil and gas is very simple. While we are still dependent on it, I think it should be inexpensive so that working families can afford to live their lives. But we do need to transition off it as soon as possible. As soon as possible. We need to get to work on that ASAP. But Fox News has no contribution to the conversation other than like, LOL, tee-hee-hee, Biden sucks. And as you can tell, as I pointed out a number of times, they've contradicted themselves in the process of making that argument. Because half the time they're like, look at him, he's so weak, he just sent a strongly worded letter. And the other half the time they're like, oh my God, he's a dictator, he's coming to seize their profits.